Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the open session of the Coventry School Committee. I'd like to open the meeting at 7 o'clock. And if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could remain standing for a moment of silence as we consider the work before us this evening. You may be seated. And Mr. Levis, if you could notify the public about the emergency exits, please.
Sure. In case of emergency, there are exits to your rear. Go out the exit and exit to your left, your right to the outdoors.
Thank you. And Mr. Pearson, would you do the honor of reading the mission statement for Coventry Public Schools?
Yes. The Coventry Public Schools, with community partnerships, educate, inspire, and motivate students to be lifelong learners.
Thank you. And just to notify the public, the school committee met in executive session for about a half hour at 6 o'clock. There were several votes taken. One, they were all unanimous, 4-0. The first one was to approve our homeschooling requests. The second was to approve our executive session minutes of 11/20/18. And the third vote was on a personnel matter. And again, all the votes were unanimous, 4-0. That being said, is there a motion to seal the minutes from the executive session?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the election of officers, I believe I'm going to turn the meeting over to our lawyer, Mr. Anderson. Just for the public's knowledge, when after the first the first meeting after the general election, we reorg the committee, and so we vote for and choose a president as well as a vice chair. I mean, a chairperson as well as a vice chair, sorry. So, Mr. Anderson, you do it. You probably do a much better job explaining this than me.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will open the nominations for chairperson of the Coventry School Committee.
Mr. Anderson, I would nominate Catherine Patnode as chairperson of the Coventry School Committee.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, I will close the nominations. I will then ask for a roll call vote whereby you will have the opportunity to either vote for Ms. Patnode or abstain. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Do I include Kathy?
Yes.
Kathy Patnode,
Yes, I could vote for myself.
David Florio,
Yes.
Donna Colunian.
Yes.
James Pearson.
Yes.
Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you to my committee for your support. I will try to make you proud. And that being said, I would like to open up the nominations for our vice chairperson. Is there a nomination?
Madam Chair, I'd like to vote for David
Nominate.
David Florio for vice chair.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor, or we have to have a roll call vote probably. Roll call, please.
Kathy Patnode.
Yes,
Dave Florio.
Yes.
Donna Colunian.
Yes.
James Pearson.
Yes.
it's unanimous, so motion carries 4-0. Nomination, we now have a new vice chair as well. Would you like to make any comments, Mr. Florio, before we move on?
Yes, Madam Chair. I believe this is a very good school committee. We're a very good group that works collaboratively to make Coventry a very special place for our students to attend. That is awesome. And that's it, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Hopefully we'll have a couple of years of good work for us before our next election. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Moving on to approval of minutes from 11/20/18. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes of 11/20/18.
Second?
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to personnel, which was our reference number 2. Mr. Levis, did you want to speak to any of these?
Yes, I just wanted to, the first one in terms of Ms. Bernier, in her resignation, I just want to thank her for her years of service to Coventry, to the families and students of Coventry.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Alicia Renier, principal at Black Rock Elementary School, effective June 30th, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to classified resignation. Did you want to speak to any of
No,
these?
just as stated.
Is there a motion to approve the resignation of Patricia Wheaton?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Patricia Wheaton, 4-hour/day supervisory yard aide at Weston Coventry Elementary School, effective January 11th, 2019, for the purpose of retirement.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the resignation of Janet Breton Hawkins. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Janet Breton Hawkins, 8-hour/day custodian, second shift at Tioga Elementary School, effective June 2nd, 2019, for the purpose of retirement.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to coaching resignations. Were there any comments from the superintendent?
No, as stated.
So is there a motion to approve the resignation of Kelly Kramer?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Kelly Kramer, heads girls softball coach at Allen Shawn Feinstein Middle School, retroactive to June 21st, 2018.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the resignation of Adam Knight. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Adam Knight, head golf coach at Coventry High School, retroactive to June 19, 2018.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Thank you, Donna. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to classified appointment. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Lindsay Germo Horner, behavior specialist, grant funded for the district, retroactive to December 3rd, 2018.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. And now we're going to move into the public agenda, and for those gathered, that means that any motions or votes that are taken by the committee, the public is allowed to give their opinion about it. And after the motion's made and there's discussion before the vote's taken, you can actually make a discussion. That being said, we can move to agenda item number 8, which is our celebration. I'm going to turn that over to the superintendent.
Sure. So I guess you guys know why you're here, and
guess
I
we
would
know
assume
why you're
everybody
here.
else in the audience, and hopefully those that are watching live recognize why you're here. You've done something for us, as many other individuals have. We've had incredible theater production recently. Last night we had 2 great concerts. We have incredible things happening in Coventry, and when I first got here, trying to figure out what this Ochre Pride is, and I think while there's still a lot of negativity in the world we live in, and it often ventures here in Coventry, there's so much to be thankful for and proud of. And I think one thing is, even though it's a material thing sitting in front of us, is this trophy that has evaded us for the last 14 years. And so we wanted to celebrate you, for the committee and the community. Thank you for what you've done, for the wins that you've had this season. But more importantly, I had lunch with Coach Dunbar, was it a week ago, and really talking about this is just a vehicle to do the work, to help. You are our future, to raise young adults, to be, to think of service to others. And Coach, would you mind coming up here? And so it's an opportunity for us just to recognize you. I wanted to personally recognize Coach Dunbar. Coach was selected as Division 2B, wherever you're comfortable with, to Division 2B Coach of the Year. So I wanted to just first congratulate Coach Dunbar. And Coach, I just wanted to, I've said enough. I wanted to turn it over to you, and then I'd like to, I know there's a lot of people here, but I'd like to introduce your coaching staff and also to introduce all the young players that are here tonight.
So I already talk to these guys all the time. They kind of already know what our plan is for the future. But I just want to talk to the people that I don't know. This is really like a vehicle, like Mr. Levis said. I'm not somebody that's all about football. I want this football program to be a part of this Coventry community. Like Mr. Levis said, there's a lot of bad going on in the world. There's a lot of negativity. And I think something like high school football can at times bring a community together. And that's what we want to be. We want to be a team that reaches out to the community. If there's any community service opportunities, any way that we can get involved with the entire Coventry community, please let Mr. Levis know. He'll reach out to me. But, we want to be more than just a football team. This is a vehicle to have a positive impact on these young people's lives. That's what I do for. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. We plan on keeping this trophy for a really long time. So we'll be back here next year. He just came to us from Maine. He's a great coach, great receiver coach. He coaches our freshmen. He really connects with these guys. Great man. We got Coach McCarthy. I'm sure some of you guys probably know him. He's been living in Coventry for a while now. Great man. Works with our offensive line. Coach Sean Salisbury. We're really lucky to have Coach Salisbury. He actually came to us after coaching at the college level, Plymouth State. So we're lucky to have a guy with college experience on the staff. Last but not least, we got Coach Carpinello up here. I told him he's my third favorite Carpinello. We got Kelly's first, then Nick, then him.
Thank you.
Before you gentlemen sit down, if you could come up and shake the committee's hands, we'd love to congratulate you.
Congratulations.
Great job.
Great
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations. Oh, you guys really ripped. Woo! Not so much you. Congratulations.
No.
Here we go.
You guys want to keep it?
Yeah, up here for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Just while the players,
Whoops, be careful.
That's
So-
like a
so-
World Series trophy, Coach.
You're already injured already.
just till you guys go, then you can take it. Do you guys mind lining up and just coming up to the mic and telling us who you are, what position you play, maybe the year that you are, and then we'll run through everybody. Is that okay? Just start one at a time. Come on up, line right up. Thanks. Just come on up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Justin Madeline. I play offensive defensive line, and I'm a senior this year.
All right.
Use the mic. Yeah, use the mic.
I'm Alden Darris. I'm a senior. I play center and middle linebacker.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jay Payne. I'm a senior, and I play offensive line and defensive line.
I'm Julian Campbell. I'm a senior. I play receiver and corner.
I play defensive defensive end. I play tight end for like half the season, and then long snapper. I'm also a senior.
I'm Doug Jensen. I'm also one of the captains, and I play wide receiver.
My name is Tommy McCarthy, and I play wide receiver and running back, and I play corner too.
I'm Jacob Pike. I'm a senior. I play offensive tackle and defensive tackle.
My name is Daniel Hatton. I play D-tackle, and I'm a junior.
My name is Ryan Kelly. I'm a junior, and I play safety and receiver.
My name is Jordan McGowan. I play middle linebacker, offensive tackle, and I'm a junior.
My name is Richard Bernard. I play offensive tackle and defensive tackle.
My name's Sean Nolan. I'm a junior, and I play wide receiver and outside linebacker.
My name's Gavin Cooney. I'm a sophomore. I play offensive guard and defensive tackle.
My name's Zachary Kelling, and I'm a junior, and I play offensive guard and middle linebacker.
My name's Nick Carpinello. I'm a freshman. I play running back and DN.
My name is Jacob Carr, and I'm a freshman, and I play safety, not corner.
My name's Travis Budock, and I play running back and D end.
My name's Nathan Chowderly, and I play wide receiver, and I'm a freshman.
My name's Matt True, and I'm a sophomore, and I play offensive line.
My name is Jake Parento, and I am a sophomore, and I play corner.
CJ.
As you can tell, my name is CJ Jennings, and I'm a freshman, and I play defensive tackle.
Hi, my name's Adriana Pike. I'm a freshman, and I play safety.
My name is Benal Magno, and I play middle linebacker.
All right, now I'm going to make it really hard on you. You're going to have to come up and shake all our hands, so come on.
Congratulations.
Can you walk?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Whoa!
Congratulations.
Good work, guys. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good job. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good
Great
job.
job.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Nice work.
Great job.
Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations. Good job.
I know who you are, right?
Good job. Yeah, they just destroyed it. Woo, woo, Polish it up with these candy canes. I don't have my mitts.
Oh, no.
So I know my fellow school committee members want to make some comments too, but I just want to say one thing that I've been on school committee, I think 16 years now, and I didn't go to the game 14 years ago for whatever reason, and I missed the game because it was this past season because of the cold conditions, and you ended up having to do it on Saturday, and I had unfortunately an event that I couldn't. It was a funeral that I had to go to, and so. And then when you won, it was really like a double whammy for me. So I'm just so proud of you guys and just so happy, proud of our coaching staff. So happy for you guys it's just a wonderful thing to see. I've been to many Thanksgiving games on school committee where that wasn't what happened. So it's really wonderful to actually be here, sitting here, congratulating you. And I just want to make one other comment. I did go to several of your home games this year, and they were very close, and there were a couple wins. But this one particular, I think it was the first home game, I was standing on the fence, might have been even homecoming or whatever, and there are a couple of parents, I don't know whose parents they are, but they were just talking, and we struck up a conversation, and they were just saying how happy they were that this team had coalesced as a group of like family, that you guys saw each other as family, and that the coaching staff, Coach Dunbar, had really done something with you guys and girls, to make you feel like you were family, and that she could see a real difference in her student coming home and saying that they were really, really excited about playing football this year. So I just want to again thank our coaches, Coach Dunbar, for bringing that spirit to our students, and just so happy for you and happy for this community. So, Dave, did you want to say anything?
Well, first off, Coach Dunbar, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. You've really exceeded our expectations, or met our expectations. Your family has to be real proud of you, because I know I am, as one of the people who appointed you to the role. My only request is that you guys all pose with the trophy with your coaches. I mean, that would be pretty awesome. Okay.
So before we do that, we'll just go down the line.
I just want to say, really proud of all of you. You know, thank you for coming out here, number one. And you really did a nice job. Coach Dunbar, awesome job. I can't be, it's nice to see a
Great job, everyone. When I think back on my high school years, I think back on my football career. I played defensive end, offensive tackle. Go figure, someone as big as but I really think about my coach. So make sure you listen to your coach. Make sure you, even when he's working you, you're running wind sprints or you're exhausted and you don't think you can push yourself any further, just remember the lessons he's teaching you, because in 20, 30 years, you'll think fondly back on them. And if you really embrace what he's trying to, what he's trying to instill in you as far as team spirit and working together, those are lessons you'll carry with you throughout your life. So congratulations, good work, and I'm looking forward to more wins next year. Thank you.
Exactly. So if you don't mind coming forward and maybe facing the audience, so there's one last picture opportunity with the trophy, that would be great.
Guys, why don't you come up here?
Yeah, come up here on the stage. Yeah. And face that way. Yeah. Yeah, the tallest in the back. Come on, you guys know how to do it.
You hold it, Jake, right in the middle.
Levis, you want to get in that picture?
Are there people taking pictures? Yeah, you want to go take one? Yeah. Oh my God. Did you hear that? What? What did he? Oh. It was good. Oh. It's really good for all the kids. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, it's really nice. Can you even play with their parents? Woohoo!
Thanks.
I'll touch base with you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
And if you guys could just sit down for 1 minute and then we'll let you go, because I know you have homework and we need to let you go home. But there may be some comments. There may be some comments from some parents or the other citizens that are gathered here. So before we say goodnight to you guys, I'm just wondering if there were any comments from the audience, citizens gathered, a parent that might want to say something. Any comments?
Can I say something?
Sure.
I just want to say, first of all, to the team, I mean, you guys have brought so much energy this year to our school. I've been in this school for over 20 years, and I've never seen football just seem so exciting. And so, thank you to you guys, thank you to Coach, and thank you to the parents, because you guys were there like cooking hot dogs and doing all of that before the games and just really buying into it. So it's been a great season and lots of fun. And just so you know, I was away, so I know you weren't at the game.
No.
I was in Spain. I missed the pep rally in person, but I watched it through FaceTime, so that was awesome. My bill is like astronomical. And I missed the game, but I was in Spain, and we were in a restaurant, and I was on the phone getting the play-by-play, and it was just so exciting. So I just want you to know how proud I am, how proud our school is, just of the whole community. So thank you, parents, Coach, and especially you guys. Great job.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything? Sure. And if you could just tell us who you are, too.
My name is Doug Jensen. Right here. I just want to thank the football team for this year and the coaches. You seniors who are leaving, take this year with you. And like someone said earlier, take this for the rest of your life. Really proud of you guys. And you underclassmen, get to the weight room. I'll say it again. So listen to your coach. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, then I guess you guys can go. We'll let you. And thank you again so much for coming. We're so proud of you. And go home and do your homework.
They're almost like brothers.
I know.
Some of them look too little because they haven't really bulked up yet. Yeah, they're freshmen.
Oh,
They
yeah.
just haven't bulked up.
You run between the linebackers.
Yeah. But even when they're out there playing, they look kind of little sometimes. I look at them and go, well, yeah, because we're looking at the nationals and NFL or whatever, and there's these big, huge guys. But I'll tell you, just because they're little doesn't mean they're not good.
Oh, they are. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, that's really cool.
My brother-in-law played football.
Really?
And he, I remember the Thanksgiving week, and they're thing of the year. Two guys jumped in front of him, and he also did track. Jumped right over him. Right over him. Yeah. And they got a picture of him. Unbelievable.
Airborne, huh?
Unbelievable.
All right. Well, that was fun. So hopefully the rest of the meeting's fun too. I think it will be. So I guess we can move on to number 9, the approval of the superintendent's raise for the 2018-19 school year. If there are no questions or discussion from the committee, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve a 2% raise retroactive to July 1st, 2018 for Superintendent Craig Levis.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Congratulations, Mr. Levis.
Taking us to lunch?
Yeah, this is what we got for Christmas presents, a half a candy cane.
And I've been eating days.
But it was the thought.
Yeah,
It's
I've been
the
giving up.
thought.
I can't eat candy cane.
Of course, I can't let it go, and so I said, a half a candy cane? Come on.
No, you can't let it go.
Well, they brought up lunch, so. Oh, gosh. Anyway, moving on to number 10, which is the discussion and approval of the 2020 Europe field trip update. And I believe it's because there's a lot more kids, if I heard correctly from some of my constituents.
Yes, so Maria Sakosha came in front of you a few
Yes.
weeks ago for approval for a trip to Spain, France, and Italy. And she was planning on running one bus, which is about 42 kids. We had the parent meeting. I went actually as a parent to send my own son. So I wasn't there for any other reason, but when I got there, I couldn't believe how many people had shown up. So there were 101 students that came out to sign up, and they were all there with their parents. It was mobbed. They were, she took a waiting list, like she took names in order. She had given seniors priority, or kids who would be seniors by for next year's trip. They have priority. She kept a running list of the order that they came in and the paperwork that they brought in. So the parents didn't know whether to stay for the meeting, not stay for the meeting. We had them stay for the meeting. We told them that we would come back to you to see if we could approve any other buses to go. When you go on a tour, you have to, we're one group on a bus, so no more than 42 kids, usually 8 adults. You can't go over 50 kids per bus. So we did say we had to get approval to accept anybody else on the trip, because I really felt like you had approved for one group of students to go. So that's kind of where we stand right now. Since the meeting, she has still continued to collect paperwork from kids who were either put on a waiting list or are going to be juniors by the time of the trip. Right now, she has collected paperwork for 93 kids. She has received many more emails from parents asking to get their kids on, and they didn't know about the meeting. It was very well advertised at school. Could they get on a waiting list? I'm anticipating that she would have at least 100 kids when it's all said and done. So the proposal is for, it's actually for 2 additional buses. While it would follow the same itinerary, the flights would be different. I don't know if they could get 100 kids on the same flight. It would definitely be for the 2 additional buses. The hotels would more likely than not be different hotels in the same cities, but different hotels, because the European hotels are very small. And so,
Chaperones?
you know, that's pretty much, they would follow the same itinerary. Each group would have their own tour director. Each group would be treated like a separate group, but it would still fall under the same trip. It would be the exact same itinerary. The only other thing that might be a little different is that if one group was going to the Colosseum, let's say, in Rome at one time, the other group might be coming later in the day. So they might stagger some of our times. Cynthia Texera has offered to be the group leader on the 2nd bus. And if need be for the 3rd bus, I offered I would run the 3rd bus for her if she needed the 3rd bus, which she probably will need the 3rd bus. Although sometimes we do have a lot of kids sign up, and then over time, we usually lose about 10% of the kids they start dropping out. So that's kind of what it is.
Okay. Thank you, Brooke.
Yeah.
Any questions for Brooke? Yep, Mr. Pearson?
I have a question, a simple one. Does this change the cost to the families at all?
No.
Okay.
No, and nothing changed at all in the
Except
trip.
the number, yeah. Kids.
Okay.
Anything else? So is there can I entertain a motion to approve the updated field trip for the world languages?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the updated field trip for the world language students, parentheses, juniors and seniors, to travel to Spain, Italy, and France from April 17, 2020 to April 26, 2020.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Anything from the public before we?
Can I just want to say, we'll have Mr. Kochia come back.
Okay.
I mean, the trip is still how many months out?
It's a
year?
while.
Right,
Yeah, it's
so
20.
so it's over a year out, but we'll have them, like, once we identify how many people are going on the trip, have them come back so that if there's further questions, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for students. I think no one was expecting this many individuals to show up.
Yeah, it was so exciting in the room, and I felt like I was at Walmart on Black Friday because they were fighting to get on this trip, and when she opened it up with the code for the kids to pay, the first 42 kids, they were screaming at the parents, "Give me a credit card! Give me a credit card! Oh my God, I need the code!" It was just crazy.
Wow.
And there is a lot of excitement about it, so.
So I just want to make sure the committee knows that we'll come back and.
We'll come back, we can bring you details. We've run, several very successful trips in the past. They're always well organized. This is probably the largest trip that we've thought of doing. We did do one a few years ago with 92 people. So Chris Hoskins and I did that with 2 groups.
So I just want to make sure it is 2020, correct? Not 2019.
2020.
2020.
It's next April.
Yes,
Yes,
2020.
it's 2020.
It's over a year, yeah.
Because I heard someone say 19 and I went, I don't think so. Yeah,
2020.
okay,
They
all
have a
right,
year
good.
and a half.
Yes, to get their acts together, yes, okay, good. Anything from the public? No? All right, that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye, any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. We knew when we heard about this trip that it was a good trip. We were like, wow, that sounds like really a lot of great stuff going on, so.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's why you're getting such a group. So I guess we're moving on to 11, which is the EFDA Food Service Program Credit Limit Policy, which is our second reading. It was our reference number 3. We've already had the first. Are there any discussions, Mr. Levis or Mr. Bresson?
I just want to say that since the first reading, we received a copy of a process of basically it's a script how to implement this policy.
Yeah.
And I received it from West Warwick Superintendent Karen Tarasevich. So I'd like to thank her. I shared it with I believe with the policy subcommittee. Did we look at the process sheet that I had to, I think we did. I had to modify it for our policy.
I think we did, yeah.
But, so, I think we did, but it's not part of the policy, it's a procedure.
It's a procedure, so that's
Right,
why
so
I
it's
don't
not,
remember.
right, yeah, no, that's okay.
yeah.
But what I just want to add to that, we met with the administrative, the principals today and the administrative team and went through not only the policy, but then we went through the process, and it really lays out, and I can share with the committee, but it lays out what the responsibility of Sodexo is, what the responsibility of the principals are in terms of the accountability, and there were a lot of good conversation. So the key is to make sure that we follow the policy, and then if we run into roadblocks, we address it, and also that Sodexo follows the policy, and I shared that process. Actually, Mr. Lesso was the individual that informed us that West Warwick. So I just want to say there's a lot more work that's gone on since, so I think it'll be a good policy, and we think, those are the steps we feel comfortable taking right now to make sure that we reduce the amount of money that is owed, and at the same time ensuring that every student has lunch.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion to dispense with the second reading?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to dispense with the second reading of the Food Service Program Credit Limit Policy, EFDA, as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Any further questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries 4-0. And is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the policy parentheses, EF, as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Any further comments or concerns from the committee? Anything from the public? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to number 12, which is the SAT, PSAT presentation, which was our reference number 4. I guess we're going to turn that over to Laurie and Brooke.
I'm actually going to stand here just so. I
Okay.
can-
Thank you for hearing us this evening. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about how this process started for the high school and I when the SAT and PSAT scores came in. So they came into the office, and I spent some time digging through them, and had a number of probing questions based on my data dig. And I asked them to replicate that process with the high school staff, because until the teachers really begin to dig in the data themselves, we can't develop a plan that will have any life and validity to it. And simply digging into the data doesn't produce any results or change. So that's great, you looked at it, well now what are you gonna do about that? What did you learn and where are you going? I wanna thank the high school administrative team for really participating in that process with me and bringing it forward to their faculty in a way that produced, I think you'll see in your packets, some real results around where the building wants to go. So thanks to the team, and thanks to the high school teachers who in turn, you know, answered some difficult questions around what that data said to them and what that means for the building and how we're going to address it going forward. So Brooke's gonna walk you through what the data looks like. We like to do the so what, now what, so what are we gonna do about it? And that's where we'll get at the end. Just what that data dig says about what steps we need to take going forward.
Okay, so we did look very closely when we were asked at our PSAT and SAT scores, and we did take quite a big set of data to our leadership team to look at, particularly in math right now. And we have to do another round of it in ELA. So because we hadn't finished that portion of it, I didn't want to just present some of the math stuff to you. So what I wanted to start with, and this is what we're going to start with our faculty when we bring it to a faculty meeting, is to just start talking about what the PSAT and SAT look like. It's, you know, how we're using it in the high school and in the state, and what we can do at the high school to start really, you know, zoning in and trying to make some improvements. Because we know that what we really look at and what we focus on, we will hopefully improve. And I think we've shown in the past, with, like, we did a lot of work with NECAP at the time when we were testing with NECAP. I know Julie Boyle said she did a ton with reading and raising reading scores, but that was a huge focus. So the focus at the high school over the next couple of years is really going to be on this new measure, which is the new state test for the high school. Okay, so I wanted to just start off with kind of giving you some basic information. So this is now the grade. We do offer to days that they have to pay for. So these are the free days, and this April 9th for the state test. There's also the PSAT NMSQT, which is the PSAT that is offered in October. Students must pay for that one if they're doing it, and it's the qualifier for the National Merit Scholarship. So juniors who take that are eligible for National Merit Scholarships. 10th graders are also offered an opportunity there as a practice for the SAT. So my son is a sophomore, he did take it, they just got their scores back yesterday, actually. So just some differences to show you with the PSAT and the SAT. You know, the PSAT 10, which is what all kids will take in our school, those scores are not seen by colleges. It is the state assessment for grade 10. It's a practice for the PSAT. It's about 2.5 hours. The highest score that they can score on it is a 1520. So that is different from the SAT. The 760 in reading and the 760 in math are the highest ones. And for PSAT and MSQT, juniors take that, like I said, to qualify for National Merit Scholarships. That is really prestigious. To be a semifinalist, you have to finish in the top 1% with your score in your state. It's done by state. We did have a National Merit Scholarship winner in 2015. One of the Bellows who graduated then, our valedictorian. She was a winner. We have had several finalists also over the past few years. So I did just put this in here. I'm not going to focus too much on this, but one of the things we are focusing on this is really looking at kids' PSAT scores to try to put into place some interventions and some tutorials for them so that we can help them to improve on the SAT, because the PSAT is the practice test, and then we can look at how they score and really break it down. We get what questions they got wrong. We get all of that information, and we can really dive into that. Excellent scores are higher than an 1180 would be considered like an excellent score. A good score is higher than a 1050, and an okay score is higher than a 920 for the PSAT. So I guess my son scored okay. Almost good. Okay, in terms of SAT scoring, this is actually really important to understand, because I think when we all took the SAT, it was scored differently. And one of the things I'm finding in talking to students about the SAT is they don't understand how it's scored, and I think that's significantly impacting their scores on the SAT. So basically, the raw score is simply the number of questions that a student answers correctly. They're not penalized anymore for wrong answers. So like when I took the SAT and I took an SAT prep course, it was like, okay, if you can't narrow that down and you can't narrow it down to 2 answers, don't answer it. You'll lose points if you get it wrong. Now you only get points for questions that are answered correctly. There are 3 sections. The reading part has 52 questions, writing and language 44, and math has 58 questions. So if you answered 50 reading questions correctly, your raw score would be 50. If you, I have a conversion chart here. I used it for math for you because the formula that they use for reading and writing, it was the biggest math problem Donna Bowden and I could not figure out how to do it. So this was an easier chart to show you. But basically, there are 58 math questions on the SAT. This is how your score is actually scaled and scored. If you answer 58 of them correctly, your score is the highest it can be. It's the most questions that you can answer correctly, and it's an 800. And it goes, so you can see, like, if you get 1 question wrong, you're down to a 790. If you get 2 questions wrong, you're down to a 780. So you can kind of go through that. I mean, you can kind of look at that, but that's basically telling us how many questions a kid has to get right to score at a certain mark. In order for our kids taking the math SAT, they need to know algebra, geometry, basic trigonometry, algebraic functions. There's 25 minutes of it. That is a no calculator. There are 15 questions there. And then there's 55 minutes on the math part, that 30 questions. You may use you can use a calculator on that. So again, just teaching kids the tricks, we think at this point also is really important. Some historical data. We've obviously been collecting data on our SATs for years. So in 2011, this was something we had in one of our reports to parents at the school report night. Yep.
I have one question. The last one.
Yeah, the writing.
The writing.
Yeah, they've changed how they score the writing now. So they now score it based on a rubric. So yeah, it does look like I messed up and left some numbers off,
Yeah,
but that's actually the way that they score it now.
I was looking at that.
Yeah, and by the way, I actually have learned a lot about the SAT just in researching for this, so I am happy I had to do this so that I really understand it as well. But 2011, only 49% of our students took it. So anyone who was college-bound, 4-year college-bound student was taking the SAT. Now, we've got 93% of our kids taking it. And so some of you might be saying, well, why aren't 100% taking it? If they were absent on the day of the SAT, then we had rescheduled them for a day, but it's a certain day. And if they weren't there for that, they couldn't take it. So some kids did stay home because they didn't want to take it and they maybe didn't see the value in it. And especially some kids who know they're not going to go to a 4-year college, you know, they may not show up that day because of that. But what I thought was interesting was even with 93% of our school, almost our entire school, our scores are still pretty comparable to where they were when just our college-bound kids were taking it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so within that 93%, we still have kids who still don't really see the value in it. They're just there going through the motions, some of them, but they still seem to have done just as well as they had done before. Okay, so let's keep going. I just wanted to show this before I go to the next slide, because you're going to see the SAT score chart that's presented from the state, and these are the cutoff marks. So for kids to be partially meeting expectations, they have to score a 420. This is for ELA. To meet, they have to score a 480, and to exceed, they have to score at least a 630.
And we wanted to zero in on those numbers because we want to drill down in the data in that yellow bar and look at those kids that are close to the 480 but not there yet. We call them the bubble kids. We want to zero in on those bubble kids, make sure that we know who they are, what their deficit areas are, provide remediation that's directed and targeted for those kids so that when they take the SATs, those scores go up.
And we have not done it in ELA yet, but we have done it in math. So if you go to the next slide. The next one. One more.
Sorry.
Oh, so sorry. If you just go back one more second, go back, sorry. So in this one, the cutoff scores, 530 was the cutoff from that yellow to green.
Yeah.
And that was the math scores that we looked at. These were the bubble kids, those yellow kids, with that right, hovering near that 530. If they answered maybe like 3 or 4 questions correctly, they would move from one color to the next. And that's a big deal in terms of your state report. So. Okay. All right, so these are, again, I put the cut scores on the top just so you understand what that is, and that's between the yellow and the green for kids. So these were our ELA scores, and it shows us against the state. So we are doing better than the state in terms of our ELA scores, and our math scores down at the bottom, again, those are comparing us statewide. I wanted to show a comparison. We are compared a lot of times to Cumberland, in terms of size and similar schools. In fact, we had 356 kids test, they had 357 kids test. We're often compared to Charahoe, although they are a smaller community. And I put Pontiac up there, Foster Gloucester, because we know with the career and tech stuff, we do have some kids looking to Pontiac, and so we wanted to see, what are they doing there as well? So those, and so when we look at this chart, we admit we have a ton of work to do, because when we compare ourselves to schools that we're often compared to, we're not really hitting the mark. So, and there are, like, we know that we have work to do, and we've come up with some things that we need to do. We also have to look at things that we've cut also, like the fact that we've cut our class, we've cut so many teachers, our class sizes are huge, so we really have to focus on going forward, really prioritizing, obviously ELA and math, but even like reinstating some courses, maybe like an SAT prep course, like we used to have, that was taught by a certified ELA and math teacher, that could really help to prep some kids in the content areas going forward. But we'll get to some other things that we think that we can do as well, but knowing that we also could use some support with that. We lose kids to private schools often, so what we also looked at was we took our National and Rhode Island Honor Society students, and we looked at what their averages were on the SAT. And so for our National Honor Society kids, it was 570 in reading and 570 in math. I looked at LaSalle and Hendricken to get what their averages are, and so yes, we are below in that area. Just to break down our subgroups, special education, These are our special education in math versus our non-special education. So these are just our own students on this. You know, it's clear our, you know, our non-special education students are, you know, outperforming. But if you go to the next one, I think it's the ELA one, right?
I want to tell you that this data is consistent with the other data, assessment data we have in the district.
Yeah.
This is not an outlier. Our special ed kids are, the inequity between our special ed and our non-special ed identified kids is clear.
So, same, held true in ELA as in math, and then, what was, but what I did think was important to show you was that we are not, go forward, yep, there, right, no, you were there. Okay.
Okay.
But when we compare ourselves with the subgroup of special ed to the state actually doesn't report the score because it's below 5%, and they won't report any score below 5%. So I don't know the actual score of students meeting, the percentage of meeting or exceeding is below 5% in the state. For us, it is 6%. And in ELA, 11% in the state are meeting or exceeding. At Coventry, it's 14%. So we are doing a little bit better with our special education population against the state in reading. We talk about gender a lot in this district. It seems like every time we look at some kind of data point, we also see a big discrepancy from males and females. And so we wanted to take a look at that. Our females are outperforming our males, as they really are in many other data points that we have. And then in math, it is also the same. And then, these are basically showing you in the state. You know, you can also see that there is this issue going on in the state. You know, so girls are kind of outperforming boys statewide in ELA. And then math, these are our boys versus our girls.
It's much closer.
It is
in
a little,
math.
yeah, it is closer. And, but statewide, if you see 31% of boys are meeting or exceeding, and in Coventry, it's only 24%. So we have some work to do to move those yellows to greens in that subgroup. So, you know, when we sat down with the math department, we brought the math data, and we looked specifically at the kids on the bubble in the yellow group to move to the green. We did, we included the scores that kids have on the STAR test, and we included the courses, the sequence of courses that they've taken, and their actual course grades. And we just looked at that to see if we saw any trends. We looked at PSAT scores, and then was there improvement with kids to SAT scores. It was a lot to look at in one sitting, but it was interesting. And what we did find was some of our students who are underperforming in math on the SAT are actually doing pretty well on STAR. And we think part of it is that STAR is not a time test, whereas SAT is a time test. So one of our first, you know, when we were brainstorming some next steps, one of the things we think would help us is if we have case managers, guidance counselors, or special education students, making sure they're reaching out to families to discuss extended time on the SAT, because that is an accommodation that can be made, but it has to be set up prior to the test. There are a lot of kids who don't want to have extended time because it means they have to sit in the room an extra hour, no matter what. They cannot leave. And so students and their parents oftentimes don't want them to have it. So, you know, but we really think that we should encourage some of them, because if it is, if it's a question of time, you know, and they need the time, it might help some of the scores. Again, trying to reinstate some budget cuts for certified ELA and math teachers to be able to teach those SAT prep classes throughout the school day. We want our math department to take what we did at our data dig and bring it to the department and really discuss look at these grades in these classes, look at, whatever it is, and really have some deeper discussions. As a school, we're doing a lot of discussions around grading practices with our school improvement team, looking at grading practices. We're also doing that within certain departments, really looking at their grades and are they matching what we're seeing on this state assessment. And we'll be doing the same thing with the leadership team with the ELA scores, and then having Julie bring that back to the ELA department. We have talked about incorporating released SAT questions often into all classes. So whether it be some reading and writing stuff, or whether it be math to use for like warm-ups, exit slips, those types of things. So kids get used to seeing these type of questions presented in the way that it's going to be presented on the test. Explicitly teaching SAT testing strategies to students before taking it. Again, don't skip those questions, or, going through some of the questions that are given out. Working with our PBGR people to discuss maybe making the test preparation part of the ILP in grade 11, so that they have to, in advisory, be focused on it. Khan Academy has an excellent SAT prep course. It's free. It's available to all of our kids. They can all access it. So we are starting those discussions. Offering summer school or after school testing preparation programs. Having our faculty look at the SAT to take the modified version, look at those questions, and see what types of questions the kids are being asked to do. And especially in the subject area classes like math specifically, being able to incorporate them into their classes. I told you the grading practice discussions are going to continue to go on, and maybe to offer some incentives for kids who meet or exceed or significantly improve, or even show like really good effort in terms of preparation for the tests, and possibly some ramp up during advisory or academic lab for kids who are not proficient on the PSAT 10. So, I mean, it's a lot to throw at you right now. It is overwhelming to us as a school, but again, we know if we focus on it, it has to be helpful. I think it will help.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Laurie. Any final comments from either of you?
No, I think that the work has been good so far. We need to implement some of the changes. We need to dig into the ELA data with the ELA department. I think there are some positives that came up.
From the committee. James?
I have a concern, not probably what you're thinking. I have a concern about accommodations. Now that we've brought these tests kind of in-house, because the state has required we do that, I want to make sure or ask, accommodations are available not just to students with IEPs, but also students with 504 plans. The accommodations take a great deal of time to get approval from College Board. I forget how long, but it's a lengthy process. I want to make sure, are we proactively reaching out to families, 504 and IEPs to talk about and prepare for these accommodations in advance? Because since their families aren't going on College Board website and registering themselves, they may not be aware of this.
I know that, I ran 504 meetings last year, so every 504 meeting that I was in with a sophomore or a junior, that question came up, and it was written into the 504, if that's how the parents and the student felt that they needed it. We can't force them to do it, but it is being offered, and the same at the IEP reviews, it's being offered to them. And then the guidance counselors are working to do the application through College Board.
Okay, that was my question.
I wish Donna was here tonight because she could even answer that a little bit more, but I know personally that almost every I would say every meeting I sat in with anyone who would ever require some extended time just within the school day, that offer is always made by the guidance counselors during that meeting.
Right, so I understand it goes in the plan. Then there's the extra step of getting
Yeah.
that accommodation approved by College Board.
Yep,
Yeah.
and the guidance counselors do that.
Good.
And they've done that consistently, yes.
Fantastic, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Donna, Dave? My only comment is that I think that we have an ability to grow. And I am going to be looking forward to seeing that growth. I think you're on the right track. I think the fact that a community like Cumberland can do better than us, Charahoe, I think we need to be there as well.
I mean, I look at our scores and I say like average, and
Yeah.
then I look at what goes on in our building, and I think it's so above average.
Yeah, it
and
doesn't
it's
seem like a reflection
and
of what's going on.
We need to do better, because we're better
really
than an
do.
average school. I know we are.
Yeah.
Can I just add, one of the things I was reading, Ms. Julie Boyle was facilitating a conversation with one of your committees around grading practices. And so when you look at Cumberland, it doesn't shock me because 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, I can't remember, probably, you might have attended, but they were focusing on grading practices at the high school and made it significant because, it doesn't shock me. Like, this is the first time in this year, and I know people have been working really hard. We have incredible teachers, and our teachers are just as effective or just as solid teachers as they have anywhere in the state. But in terms of the administration and the district and working collaboratively and supporting teachers, that's been all over the place, I think. When I look historically, you guys have a much better history in Coventry than myself, but I feel that not just presenting the data, but now coming up with plans, and I think a major part is looking at that whole grading practice. What is a B in one person's class versus a B? And, you hear a lot of things, or you look on Facebook and people saying, well, years ago, I got an A and everybody got A's in our class, and we're not years ago, so we're drilling down. Like, I love what you're looking at. We've talked before about MTSS. We're drilling down to where are these areas of deficiency, and our teachers are doing that. So now the goal is, okay, how can we help students develop those skills? But as administration, we have to support our teachers to have the resources and the ability. So it isn't just adding teachers, but it's making sure whatever we do, it's kind of, there's a formative process. We're able to assess, is what we're doing working, not just keep doing more and more and more. And I think that's a good cycle. And Don talked a lot about that when we did the curriculum work. That's being embedded in all the work. So again, I'm not trying to critique what's happened in the past, but I feel comfortable that we have a process. At least we're going to know pretty early on if something we're doing is not effective, we're going to have to do something else. And to me, that's crucial in this work. As a committee, you should be hoping to see us come back ongoing and saying, hey, this is what we've identified, and these are the results. And that's our accountability to you. But we also have a lot of accountability to our teachers, and we have accountability to everybody in terms of the budget. So it's we're walking on this balancing beam, but I think, we're there for the duration. And I think, like, Lori had said, a lot of positives. Remember, like 40 some odd % of the kids took the SAT, and now we've almost doubled that. And, our scores are teeter-tottering where they used to be. So just that culture around assessment, changing that these tests are important, changing the mindset. We see those big gaps with boys and girls, I shared Dr. Schockart's report that we'll go over in more depth at some point. So there's a lot that's under the microscope now. The key is, what are we going to do with it to move forward? So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the work. And we look forward to hearing more about how we can help our kids do better. I do know that we're going to be looking at maybe the RICAS tonight. And I think one of the good things that I saw from that was that there's growth above the 50%, which is that piece that I'm happy about. That even though we may be behind, we've got some good growth for our students. So hopefully we'll see that in the high school as well. So I thank you very much. I thank all the high school teachers for all the work they're doing and administration. So thank you very much. Okay, were there any questions or comments from the citizens gathered before we move on? No, seeing none. Get myself back here on the roof here. Yikes, where am I? Yeah, okay. So, we're gonna move on to 13, which is CHS Program of Studies and Amendment Proposals, right? Oh. Thank you. Okay, and so, I'm not sure who's gonna start that. Is it you gonna start that?
I'll just start it. Brooke, I think you and Julie.
She's back on.
So we have, just to kind of frame this, we have a lot of, there's a lot of name changes going on, mostly modifications, there's a few deletions, and there's a couple of additions. And just so the committee knows that we feel that the only way we know, we have to make some changes. The only way we know that if students are interested is to get courses into the course catalog. At the end of the day, we still have to make sure that we have enough students in a course, that there's enough interest. And also, we have to look at the whole impact on the budget. So as we go through this, my recommendation for the new courses, there's a couple of new courses you'll see, and there's a couple that are going to require additional personnel. Is we want to go through the process, because at the end of the day, we're still going to have to make sure that there's an interest and that we can make it work within our budget. But if we don't put in the course catalog, then we'll never know if students are interested. About that, it's gone through the process of the individual department heads. It's gone through with the administration sign off, with the curriculum council has approved it. Don has signed off. Lori's reviewed them, and then they came to me. So that's the steps. So tonight, hopefully, there are individuals here that can answer the questions. I know there'll be questions from the committee. So I don't know. We set it up so there's a motion on each one. I don't know how you want to go through this.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the pleasure of the committee is. Were there any specific questions on any of them that you want answered before or do you want to look at each one as we move forward?
That's a good question. I only have like 2 questions.
Okay,
Maybe
why don't
we
we
just maybe we just field those in advance so we can just when
Good.
we
Yeah,
need to
I think
vote,
that
we
might
can
work.
just
Yeah.
Beautiful.
go through the
Yeah.
vote.
So
So one
any
was a
questions?
comment. I am actually
Yep.
very happy to see celebrating the classics in literature
Yep.
as a course offering.
Me too.
Yeah.
Nice too. I like that.
Yeah, I'll refrain from making any comments about what Common Core did to that, and it's nice to see that these classics are coming back into the curriculum in some cases. So, no, it's a good thing. Kids need it. I have conversations with my daughter all the time, and it's difficult having conversations and making, references to certain books, and they look at you with the blank stare.
Like,
They
what are
have
you
no idea
talking
what the
about?
cultural reference is. So I have to throw in the pop culture reference, which I hate doing. I can only reference Justin Bieber so many times.
And why would you want it?
Yeah. So that was my comment. My question, and it's probably an easy answer, but I was just curious. So I see we're eliminating Cisco 3, and I know Mr. Levis and I, we talked about this very briefly before the meeting. I just have a question of how that impacts students' ability to prepare for CCNA, if that indeed is their goal. But I understand that we're adding some other technology courses in here to kind of broaden what we're offering in that area, and that's terrific to see too, because Cisco in their certifications has already done that. They have security offerings, network security, and other things besides just basic networking. So I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit on the Cisco 3 rationale, if you can.
I can't,
Or someone.
yeah.
I don't think
I mean,
Larry's
I don't know if
there.
Brooke can, I think the big,
I
the-
have this blank stare on my face. I
Yeah.
knew the one course you were going to ask about was that one, and I was like, oh, of course he was going to ask about
Well,
Cisco. I need Lori here to explain
Yeah.
it again. She did explain it at our meeting. It was complicated. I really can't go through the explanation, but I can't give you the answer.
but we knew last year, what I can say is we knew we had reduced the position. So part of this plan is to increase the position. We had reduced it to 0.6, if you remember, because we were eliminating that whole Cisco pathway. When we interviewed and we brought on another individual to run the IT computer offering through CTE, we're looking at a different direction. Excuse me. So this was really again, it's probably not the best answer, but the answer from a budgetary perspective and a numbers perspective was we were going to phase out the whole Cisco programming. So I can't answer specifically, but I know we had committed to go into another direction. But I can't answer that question around certification, so I don't know if it's,
We'll take it offline. It's not a big question. I was just curious. But your answer to that, we're planning to phase out the Cisco thing, actually answers that question, and that would make sense because
those are the conversations we had last year. Just in terms of the numbers, and again, I'm not, that's not my area of expertise, but the conversations we had with Lori Ferguson and Mrs. Bowden were around, what we wanted to honor the students that were in certain courses, so we allowed that to continue for a year. But our goal was to change the focus, and when we change the focus, that's when we add on like the cybersecurity course. And I think there's an adjustment in the AP technology course also, but that was our plan going forward for this year. Again, if we have enough individuals for that. So,
and there's still opportunity for students who choose dual enrollment. They can take CCRI off.
Let's have the rationale.
Mental certification test, which is a good fit for students interested in pursuing professional level certifications such as A+. That doesn't mean a whole lot to me personally, but I think for somebody who doesn't understand computing, it better aligns with the certification in the industry.
That's you, Julie.
I don't know if that's helpful, but.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
I didn't have any other questions. I just kind of looked through it all. I liked the piano. That was cool.
I like the piano.
Hopefully that will be successful. And I obviously love the celebrating the classics as well, being that I think by grade 6 I had read most of the classics just because my mother had a great library. And so by the time I was in high school and people were like, you read Moby Dick already? And you Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre and all those great books that, our kids don't really
It's funny because
get to see or hear.
My sister bought the whole library for
Yeah.
me when I was young.
I think my mother did too, and that's why
I
I
passed it on to my children.
didn't go to the library. I just read all the classics. Yeah.
The teacher course is a good one too.
That is true, exactly. I think, I love that. Yes, I think that was exciting to see too.
And I'm excited to be part of that.
Yeah.
Kind of crossover
Yep.
from my ELA hat. But,
Exactly.
That's a real promising program.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea too as
I
well.
love all the math courses because
Yeah.
I am a math.
So outside of asking questions, because you guys are the experts, you've already figured it all out. I don't really have anything much to say, and I think we're ready to move on these motions and we can make quick work of it. So let's go at it. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the addition of Celebrating the Classics in Literature, 0.5 credit as a course program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
And I'm not going to ask questions on all that kind of stuff or even bring it out to the public. Let's just move. And then at the end, if people want to say anything about anything, I'll give you the opportunity, okay? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the next one.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the addition of Comp TIA IT Fundamentals 1 credit as a course program to the Coventry Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to Foundation of Education.
I took 3 semesters of this at Rhode Island College, Madam Chair, and I think it's a great idea.
I did too.
took mine
Madam
as
Chair,
well.
yeah, we all did. Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the addition of Foundations of Education, Introduction to Teaching, 1 credit as course program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to piano class.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the addition of piano class, 0.5 credit, as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to
Another great one.
Principles of Digital Forensics.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the addition of Principles of Digital Forensic, 1 credit as a course program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to URI Cybersecurity Fundamentals.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the addition of URI Cybersecurity Fundamentals, 1 credit as a course program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair
One
votes aye.
question. No. It has to do with the URI Cybersecurity Fundamentals Program. Does this mean that our students are going to get, kids that take this course, they're going to get credit for URI for taking this course? They're going to get credits for college credits to URI for this? Credit.
I think it's along the same lines as like an
As the
EET
English,
type of,
yeah.
course.
It's the advanced, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the deletion of Algebra 3 as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the deletion of Cisco 3.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the deletion of Cisco 3 as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to finite math, name change.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to change the name Finite Math Advanced Topics CP to Advanced Topics in Math as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
My only comment to that was I loved the explanation. Anyway, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to graphics communication to advertising, marketing, and design, which I thought's a great name change.
That's great.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to change the name of Graphic Communications to Advertising, Marketing, and Design as a course program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to another name change.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to change the name of 422 Fundamentals of Chemistry to 422 Chemistry CP/S Part A as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the second on the chemistry change.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to change the name of 424S Chemistry Enhancement to 424S Chemistry CP/S Part B as a course program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the name change of child studies. I know Laurie's not here, but does anybody know what the reason for that is? Because I am what I was
Changing it from child
yeah,
studies
to education, yeah.
She thinks it'll attract more
More,
people,
okay.
Especially kids who are interested as a pathway of going into education.
Mhm.
So that's really the reason.
Okay, thanks. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent, change the name of Child Studies 123 to Education Studies 1234 as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Now the changes to French, Italian, and Spanish for APs.
Okay.
Mr. Florio.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent, change the name of French 4 AP to AP French Language and Culture as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
Second the motion.
And I did have a quick question on that. Is it because the AP does do more culture too as well, or is it just more descriptive, or?
They want it to be like French AP and then French 4.
Yeah.
Because we're hoping along the lines we'll get to we'll be able to offer French 4, and then French AP if we are able to implement like a middle school program. Is that people will get to that 5th level language.
see.
They will have already taken French 4, Spanish 4, Italian 4, and then we'll take the AP course the following year.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to Italian.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to change the name of Italian 4 AP to AP Italian Language and Culture as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Study.
4-0. And now we come to physics. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to modify Physics 1 AP to prerequisite completion of Physics 1 CP or Physics Honors, Chemistry, Concurrent Enrollment, Pre-Calculus, or Trigonometry in the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to, looks like the double block, Cosmo 2.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the sequence change. Cosmo 2, 1 block to 1.5, parentheses, the double block will be in the 2nd semester, and Cosmo 4, 3 blocks to 2 blocks as a course program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. And finally, Spanish 4 AP.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to name Spanish 4 AP to AP Spanish Language and Culture as a course/program to the Coventry High School Program of Studies.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. So before we move on to the RICAS presentation, were there any comments on any of those changes at the high school? Seeing none, hearing none, then let's move on to 14. And I assume, Mr. Cowett, you're going to start this?
So this is a preliminary sort of overview explanation of RICAS. It's a new test for us. It's a new test for the state. It's replacing the PARCC test, but there's components of it that are new and different. So the scores were released about 2 weeks ago. And as you probably have seen in the press and, out there in the state of Rhode Island, everybody's been very disappointed at how the RICAS test went. Especially since now we're being heavily compared to Massachusetts, and Massachusetts outscored Rhode Island in pretty much every category. And so what was important for us is to be able to get ahead of what the data looks like for us, explain what it means overall, and then I think further down the line when the principals and the teachers have had more time to drive down and do more specific data digs, similar to what Lori was describing earlier, we can look at specific subgroups, we can look at specific students, we can look at those kids that she called the bubble kids, because the same group of kids exists in this data that exists in the PSAT and the SAT data, and start thinking about ways we can continue to move them forward. So I try to keep this short because I have a little bit of a reputation of going long. So I opened the slide with 1,000 words. I don't know if you were aware, I think the school committee received a copy. We did a fact sheet that went out to the community.
Yep.
This is basically off that fact sheet. We basically tried to give an overview of what the test was. Administered for the first time this year for students in grades 3 to 8. There were 51 public and private and charter schools that participated in the test. It was only given in English and Language Arts, ELA and Math. Coventry is identified as the 7th largest district in Rhode Island. Scores look like they may have gone down compared to previous years, but the RICAS assessment has more rigorous benchmarks for each level, and I'll explain what that means further down the line. So what was meeting expectations on the PARCC is not meeting expectation on the RICAS. It's more challenging to meet it on the RIE test. So, but kids made growth, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. Massachusetts has also been giving this test for 20 years. I worked in Massachusetts as a teacher, and when I worked there, we had the frameworks, which is sort of their statewide curriculum documents, which Rhode Island does not have, and we had the MCAS test. So, and I've been in Rhode Island for 15 years, so the test is well established there, and they've been fortunate to adjust it and tweak it, and they've been successful. The other difference is in Massachusetts, the RICAS test for high schoolers is required for graduation. So it's more high stakes in Massachusetts than it is right now in Rhode Island. So this is the slide I was going to try to help explain what the results mean. It's the same standards. It's the Common Core state standards, the same standards that we had last year. So this is the first time in Rhode Island we've changed the test, but not changed the standards, which is actually a good thing. So the standards are the same, it's just a different test. And like I said before, the performance standards are a little bit more difficult than they were with Park. So 500 is the scale score. Anybody over 500 is meeting or exceeding expectations. Anybody under 500 is either partially or not meeting at all. And this yellow section is just like the section you saw in the previous presentation about students who are partially meeting. And just like the other presentation on PSAT and SAT, we have a decent number of kids living in that category, which is actually hopeful because compared to the state, which has more kids living in the not meeting, we have fewer kids in that zone. We have more kids in the next level up. So that's hopeful for us because we have kids that are very close, they're cuspy. And when we drill down to the data, we'll see some kids have missed the cutoff by 1 or 2 points. 49, they might have a 499, and a 499 puts them right in partial, no different than somebody who scored a 471. That's where they're living. And we have a lot of kids who are living right in that zone. We'll hear more about them as we dive deeper into the data. No, I'm good. Everybody wants to help. Figured it'll go faster. Husky's a word. Look it up. Google it. The other thing they did on this test, which I think is a good thing, not just for our students and learning more about their results, but also learning about where we are in terms of growth. Because when you look at data in terms of performance, it paints one picture. If you look at it as growth, it paints a different picture. And when you look at them together, it gives you a different explanation of where the kids are heading. So the growth score is an interesting piece that they've added this year. They're not comparing their growth compared to last year's test in terms of they took the RICAS last year, they took it this year, and this is what they grew. They can't do that because the RICAS didn't exist last year. So what they did is they put kids into cohorts, into groups who scored in a similar fashion on the last test. So if there were 150 kids in Rhode Island that all scored in a very similar way on both the ELA or the math, and they become a cohort of kids. And when they look at this year's results, they see how did the student compare to that group of kids. So it's growth compared to like scoring students, if that makes sense. It's not compared to the actual test itself. And the cutoff is a little bit different. It's a 1 to 99 percentile. So if the student is above the 50th percentile, then they're making positive growth. So if you're sitting right on 50, they are making average growth. 50 is dead on average. They go above 50, they're heading to high growth, which is obviously where we want to go. So if this particular student was a 516 on their scale. Oh, I did that again. Oh. I'm going to sit here. Go. Everybody's...
Go. You like to stand up.
So, back up, please.
Oh, wait. Oh, the other way, right?
All right, you're fired.
Okay, sorry. Other way? Other way.
Oh, no, it's the other way, left.
So we can
There
do
you
it faster.
go.
Okay.
So this particular student got a 516 as their scale score. So they're in the meeting expectation in terms of their proficiency. And the student was a 63 on their growth percentile. So they did better than 63% of the kids who were in that cohort.
Mm-hmm.
you. So this is the ranking, and I don't want to get too hung up on ranking. The M and the E mean meeting and exceeded put together. So when you look at the two zones put together, we're looking at how we did compared to other communities. So in English Language Arts, in ELA, we were the 21st out of 51 in terms of our score. If you break it down by grade, our third grade was 21st out of all third grades. Our fourth grade was 14th out of all fourth grades. And you can read the rest of these, but our 7th and 8th grade were both 14th out of the other, compared to the other 7th and 8th grades. And that's important to look at because when you look at their score by themselves as just their proficiency, you may say, well, they didn't do that well. But they actually did very well when you start looking at their growth or how they did compared to the rest of the state. What's not wonderful news, and what this red zone indicates for not just us, but anybody who's in that red zone, and there's another 2 pages that go below this, are districts that scored under 50% of their kids in the meeting and exceeding range in ELA. So we were at 45.51 with an average scale score of 497, which is just under 500, with an average growth of 54, which is just above 50. So that is where we're living. Only the communities above these gray communities were ones that scored more than 50% of their kids meeting or exceeding. There's not that many. And when you look at Massachusetts, when you look at mathematics, is actually even less. That's not good news for our state. It's not even great news for us, but it's important for us to know where we sit compared to other communities. And this is not just public schools. For example, the #1 school was Kingston Hill Academy, which is down in by URI.
So, Dawn, the one thing I didn't like about this data when I first saw it on the RIDE site, I downloaded into Excel. The charter schools, it's one school compared to a whole district.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense to me to have it grouped that way. I know that's what they did,
This
but
is
I
what-
pulled them out because I didn't even want those charter schools in there because they're just one school.
Yeah, and I didn't presume to do that. I left
No, I
it
know,
just the way
I
it
know you
was.
did what you did.
But if
yeah.
I wanted to slice it and dice it, it would obviously
Yeah.
look a little bit different. And obviously, even if you look at New Shoreham, that's #2, that's Block Island.
Yeah.
The number of kids, and I don't have that data on this sheet, but the number is much lower than our number because it's a much smaller district. It's a much smaller community.
So it's,
Don, I have one question too, and these scores, now, this is, our third graders, they still didn't get that all-day K, is that correct?
Our second
Yeah.
graders, right?
yeah, they're
This
just,
year's
yes,
second graders
this
are
will be
first
the
with that
second
full
year.
day?
Yeah, this is the second year,
So
so.
they're comparing our half-day students.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So,
You
right,
know,
so that's what
Yeah,
happens when you're the
I'm
last
really hoping
district
we're
to
gonna
go full
see
day,
something better.
right? Because Westerly's been doing full day for like
For a
20
long
years.
time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can look at when you dive into the data.
Yeah.
I didn't kind of do anything to it. I just said, you know,
No, that's what it was
this is
presented.
what it is. Okay, Brooke. So I also wanted you to see it in a different way. So the state average was 33. The Coventry average was 45, which I showed you on that last slide. Our third graders were 52% proficient, meeting or exceeding. Our fourth graders are 55, meeting or exceeding. Fifth graders are 47, sixth grade 47, seventh grade 32, eighth grade was 40. This 32 was the lowest area. The seventh grade was the lowest area, not just in Rhode Island, but also in Massachusetts. That seventh grade test was the lowest performing one. I don't know
Why is that?
exactly why yet. It could be the questioning. It could
questions.
be the expectation. I'm not quite sure, but when we went to the RIDECast release item meeting, they identified that seventh grade as being the lowest one between Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And then I just kind of broke it out, looking at it by school and level. So here's all our third grades: Western, Hopkins Hill, Washington Oak, Black Rock, Tyo. But there's no particular order or ranking when you look at our elementary schools, because depending on which piece you're looking at, it swaps.
Yeah.
So, you know, on the third grade, Western happened to be the highest. On the fourth grade, Washington Oak happened to be the highest. It is no, like, you know, set order to it.
Yeah.
I was a little nervous putting this up because when you start looking at data and you start looking at schools compared to other schools, people start making presumptions and assumptions about what's going on in a particular school. And our Title I schools have been identified as being schools with low socioeconomics, and obviously there's different sets of challenges that go with a school like that versus a school that doesn't have low socioeconomics. So this is the one I made this graph myself, which took me a long time, get the data for males versus females. So there's no third grade data on here because you can't compare third grade to last year because they didn't take a test. So it's 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So the good news is all our kids are living on this side of the 50th percentile. So that means all our kids are on the positive side for growth. If you look at our 7th grade, which is 491, on one hand you say 491, well, they're below 500 and they're the lowest scoring in terms of proficiency, but they're the highest scoring in terms of growth. Their growth percentile was 79th as a group, was in the 79th percentile. That's very good in terms of growth. It means we're moving in the right direction. And then you can see a few of the grade levels, like 4th grade was right on the line, 500. Most desirable place to be, clearly, is up here. High growth, high proficiency. That's where you want to live.
Yep.
But we're on the right side of the graph, and because clearly this is where you don't want to be. Low growth, low proficiency. Then I did it again for math. So remember I talked about the red zone, right? So in mathematics, this is the state of Rhode Island. Anybody who has less than 50% of their kids meeting or exceeding fell sort of in this red zone. There's only 6 schools that were above the red. Kingston Hill Academy was number 1. All the rest were down. Coventry sits right here, 29.05% of our kids meted or exceeded. Not as strong a showing as ELA. It's 28th out of the 51 schools that participated. So, hold on one second, Brooke. So our 3rd grade was 27th compared to other 3rds. Our 5th grade actually did pretty well compared to all the other 5th grades. They were 19th compared to all the other 5ths. All right, Brooke. And then I stacked it up this way. So the state percentile meeting exceeding was 27. We were just above the state at 29. Our 3rd grade was 38. 4th grade was 32, 33, 20, 28, and 26. And then I just broke it out by schools. And this is our 6th grade was here. Then they kind of went up for 7th, and then they kind of leveled off a little bit for 8th in mathematics. And same kind of chart. Little different story because our 6th grade is living in this zone. They're close to the line, but they're sort of categorized as being below the 500 for proficiency, but also below the 50th in terms of growth. So that's a grade level. Obviously, we're going to have to watch closely. And we're a little bit stacked on top of each other over here for 7th and 8th grade. Still on the right side, though, in terms of growth. So I've been in front of you more times than I should count on presenting data, and there's no data here that I would say is a complete surprise to me. This is the same consistent message that we've been uncovering for the last 6 months to a year. So the good news is we knew where we were, and when the RICAS came, it pretty much told us what we knew. It's not all great news, but there are some good things that we can take away from it and look at, and the biggest piece being that growth. One thing they did talk about is kids who are not meeting. So in ELA, like I said, Coventry ranked 21 out of 51. 11% of our kids were in that last zone of not meeting, compared to the state, which was 19.76, which is almost 20%. So back to what I was saying earlier, we don't have a lot of kids living down in that not meeting. They're in that partial meeting, which is very close to kind of moving them up. In mathematics, it was 14.69 for us, and the state was 22. So compared to the state, we're doing much better on that last section. We're moving in the right direction. Growth shows positive movement. There are still performance gaps, the same ones that Lori and Brooke identified in ELL and mathematics. with kids who are Ls, who have disabilities, low socioeconomics. Our low SES test coming, and they wanted to like stick their head in the sand and never pull it out again because the scores weren't wonderful. We were kind of grateful because it kind of confirmed what we knew and made us feel like, you know, the work we've been doing is aligned with what we're seeing. We're still doing our curriculum overhaul. That's not going to change in the next number of years. We're going to continue to look at other community service and social agencies to help support the work. We're going to dig deeper into the subgroups. One thing that we're going to be able to do that has never been done before is instead of just always comparing us to Massachusetts, to Rhode Island schools like Cumberland, we can actually find a school in Massachusetts with a very similar demographic, same size, same SES, almost identical to us, and see
what are you
we
doing?
want to come see what you have going on and do what educators do best is steal what they're doing and doing well and bring it back and try to duplicate it here. And we're going to continue measuring growth and charting progress. And then the last thing is, you know, as much as tests are important, and I presented test information and assessment information to you before, we're still looking at our kids as a whole student, and we look at every kid and every student as being somebody who has passion, who's excited about something, whether it's football or something different, and we want to make sure we embrace all of it. If you get too locked into that assessment zone where all you do is worry about how they're performing on a particular test on a particular day, you can lose sight of what's important for kids in the long term and what's going to impact them as adults. That was pretty short, I think, for my standards.
No, thank you. It was very good, actually. I think my only comment that I thought was amazing when I did some of my original looking at the data and trying to look at statewide, I read something or heard something that even our top districts compared to Massachusetts were dismal. I mean, they were in the bottom 10% of the worst. They were in the 10% of the worst Massachusetts communities.
If you took Rhode Island as if Rhode Island was a
District in Massachusetts would be
the whole state
would be way down.
We were in the bottom 10% of what Massachusetts did.
Exactly, which
But
means
if you go district by district for a Barrington, for example, Barrington compared to like a CConk, but Barrington is actually not comparable to a CConk when you start comparing the SES and the population.
Yeah.
They should be much higher than a
Right.
CConk. Districts like Fall River outpaced many
Exactly.
districts in Rhode Island, and Fall River and New Bedford are districts that have been going through all kinds of reorganization in the last 5 to 10 years. So there's a lot to learn.
Right. Thank you so much. That's very interesting.
No problem.
Yeah.
Happy to bail you.
I was heartened to see the growth that we were in most categories above the 50%, so, or that 50 line or whatever. So I'm hoping that that's indicative of where we're going and that we're going to see some improvements. And I also agree with the whole thought that tests aren't everything, but they are one measurement, and so we need to be conscious of that. Any questions or concerns from any of the committee members? We're all good. Any questions or comments from the citizens gathered? Again, thank you for this presentation. It really opened up some of my questions that I had. So I guess we can move on then to our financial director of the finance budget update. Sarah?
So I'll keep it relatively short. You have the report in your packet. The main thing that I wanted to call is that we will be coming back to you probably at the next meeting with a request for impact fees. So as you know, we did go forward to the state requesting up to $437,000 worth of emergency safety repairs. We have about $130,000 in impact fees. We need to move forward on some of those, one, because they are safety measures that our schools need, and two, to meet that 1%, and also to demonstrate to the community that we're interested in making these a priority as well. So we have started to go through and really prioritize out of that request what our needs are. I've also looked at, out of that $437,000, we would get about $192,000 back in reimbursement because that was approved. So when you look at that, plus the 130,000 that we have in impact fees, if we were to request money from the town cell tower fund, we certainly wouldn't be drawing down all of those funds, and it wouldn't be a negative budget to actual expense on their side. So I think it could be a win-win, and I'm hopeful that we can communicate, with the town and kind of move forward. But we will be coming back, so I just want to put that on your radar. But that's really the biggest thing. We talked a lot Monday night, so I'll leave it light unless there's any other questions.
Yeah,
You did a great job.
I'm good.
Thank you.
That was very well done, yeah.
I have one question. Have they said any more about the cell tower money?
No, and I think in some ways with all the transition that's happened on the town side, it's, I don't want to say it's fallen off the wayside, but the big thing is that we are budgeting on an annual basis what they receive on an annual basis. The bigger topic is that balance that's sitting in the account and who's going to actually own that. So that's really where we were hoping to say, listen, we want to draw down some of that balance. And it will be tough because it is commingled with the town cell tower. But I think if we can start making progress to say, listen, that's a benefit for the town because they're not coming up with additional funds, and it's helping us meet our needs and get to that cap. So we haven't had a formal sit down. There aren't a lot of written agreements as to how that cell tower money is supposed to be divvied up. But I do think we'll get some momentum going forward to get some of these projects done.
I'm hopeful too. Yeah. Any further questions for Sarah? Anything from the public for Sarah?
Just say about with the cell phone tower. Cell phone tower. That I think what's important for the committee to know though is that there's been incredible communication between Ms. Mangiarelli and Mr. Arnett and Mr. Wazika, and I think it's been very positive. And I think that we will get somewhere, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. I think that at some point, they also want to support this work. They recognize the responsibility of the community with the maintenance requirement, and I think this is an easy way. If the council will support it, this is an easy way to take money that is not going to impact any other funds and do some work that's obviously it's needed. The fact that RIDE authorized it around safety, so I think you'll see in a short period of time that we'll be coming back to you with something. I'm very optimistic, but I want to say a lot of it. The communication has been very, very good.
Seems like it is.
So
It
that's
is.
important.
Yeah. It does feel like we're kind of trying to move forward as a community.
Yeah.
So it's a nice feeling for sure.
Cool. All right, thank you, Sarah. So moving on to 16, the discussion and approval of the RIDE Technical Assistant Memorandum Agreement.
So a few months ago, we came forward when we put in that request for accessing money around safety and emergency repairs. We also had shared with you a letter that we submitted around technical assistance. And Jason, Sarah, myself we met with the RIDE's school building authority individuals there, Dr. Joe Da Silva and Mario Carena, and one other individual who's newly hired. Kristen, was it? Kristen. And they had coached us and said that, if the bond gets approved, they planned on allocating funds for technical assistance. So we probably were the first district because as soon as we got back, we wrote that letter. And we hadn't heard, that was months ago. So we sent a couple emails, Sarah had asked, I sent an email, and about 3 days later, this is when we got this document. What this does, so it awards us $150,000. And on the page, this is page 1 of 2, it talks about the scope of the project. And it reminds me of Mr. Pearson and I were having a conversation, I think after the meeting, and we're both talking about facilities. I don't want to put words in Mr. Pearson's mouth, but I think both of our goals, and I think the community's goal, is to have some type of long-term plan around facilities here. And this money, every time we did that necessity, as you remember, we had a necessity for school instruction. It was approved stage 1. We were going to apply for stage 2. The reason we couldn't do that is because we didn't have the money for at the time for the feasibility study. We're looking at like 40, it's a percentage of the project, but you know, when we're cutting 20.6 or 21.6 teachers and, you know, we freeze the budget, we, the first day of pretty much of school, we just couldn't move forward. This allows us to move forward, but that plan isn't just what do we think. It's going to incorporate the community, look at our current educational facilities, look at what the vision for the community is, look at how do our current facilities meet the instructional, the educational needs. And it's exactly what we need to do to move forward, to have a comprehensive plan and obviously be part of the town's comprehensive plan. So we'll be coming back before you, but what RIDE has asked us to do as soon as possible is to sign this attached memorandum of agreement, which I need every member of the committee to sign, and I need to sign, and we'll submit. And then when we go forward in terms of the process, it's well delineated, I think, in this letter. But what I really like is it talks about the scope, and it really talks about the educational facility master plan. But then it says Coventry Public Schools can use funding for any of these eligible expenses related to the necessity of school construction application in the stage 2 review checklist. So it talks about the architectural engineering services, owner's program manager, this educational facility master planning, public engagement, appraisal, feasibility studies, facilities analysis, geotechnical studies, and the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management site selection and remediation process. So it allows us such a broad area to use these funds. So I would, you know, I recommend that the committee approve this tonight and sign. And then again, you know, one of the first steps is a building commission too, which you have to appoint. So, but every step of the way, we'll be coming back before you. So I want, you know, to reassure you that it isn't okay, we go off and running with this $150,000. There's accountability, but we have accountability to you. So I don't know if anybody also here in Sarah.
No, I think it's wonderful that the money was freed up for this technical assistant, especially, I think it was about a year ago in December that Seth Magazine first made the beginning pitches to school committees about all of this, including the fact that many of us said, we can't even get the money together to do the beginnings of the, you know, just planning it, you know, hiring people, doing this kind of stuff. So I'm really glad that they were able to free up some of the bond money to do this kind of work. So I'm 100% behind this. I can't see how we could not all want to sign this. Any questions or comments from anyone? So are we ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the RIDE Technical Assistance Memorandum of Agreement as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Any other questions from the committee? Anything from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much, and we'll sign all of these. I'll pass this down, guys. Do we need this? You can keep
No,
the
I
top.
just,
Yeah.
so people have the documents.
Yeah. I don't want them to lose it. Okay, Mr. Florio. Do you know how many districts have gotten money?
No.
Or is just the only one?
We met with them.
We're the only ones?
It was like, it kind of seemed like we were one of the first they were telling. So I don't know how much money they had to give or how
In the
many
first
districts
place.
were given.
That's
Yeah.
great. It's wonderful.
But
It
we'll
was
take
only a
it.
couple of weeks ago where the Department of Ed met with superintendents and representatives from the school building authority, and they laid out the entire process now that the bond had passed. So I would believe that we're one of the
Might be the
first.
first, so yay for Coventry to getting out there, you guys, thanks. Congratulations on that one. All right, wonderful. All right, is that it? We're good. All right, moving on to subcommittee updates. Do we have anything from policy or Mr. Pearson? Did you have any update?
It's all a blur. No real updates.
It's
We
9:00, that's why.
We have we've met recently, but we have a meeting coming up next week.
Okay.
We hope to have, hopefully Mr. Anderson will be there and we can start to cover some things that have been kind of put to the side for
Okay.
a few weeks.
Cool.
So the times of the meeting still the same?
For now,
Okay. I have one more question.
sure.
The distribution policy, how's that going? Because I get
That's what we
asked
need, Mr.
every
Anderson.
That's the
sing-
one.
I
That's
get
the
asked
one.
every single week.
We have some draft. We have a draft
We heard there was
prepared,
a draft,
and we're waiting for some feedback from the attorney.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think that might be it on our subcommittee. So moving on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Levis.
So just in terms of school safety, two points I want to just talk about. One is Ms. Mandrelli brought up the fact that we have an opportunity in front of us using impact fees, and also I'm optimistic that we hopefully down in a short period of time we'll be able to access some of the cell phone tower funds, and I think we'll be able to make some headway into some of our buildings and some of the areas that we've identified, which I think is crucial. Another piece I want to bring up is that we remember it was several weeks ago where we had incidents at the middle school, and there was a plan last Friday. We're supposed to have 3 assemblies with the school administration, the police department, and the attorney general's office was going to do something on bullying, but there's been an individual was ill, and so we're still trying to reschedule. I would desperately like to have those assemblies with the students take place prior to vacation. I think that we really want the Attorney General's office to be part of that. So we're still trying to negotiate that. I know Mr. Anderson has a contact at the Attorney General's office. I'm going to reach out to them tomorrow to see, because I understand the police would really like to have the Attorney General office there. So I've been a lot of people have inquired in terms of when that's going to take place, and I've spoken to Mr. Lucian. And, the police are incredible partners in this community with us, and I respect, their desire to do this with the Attorney General office. And so that's what we're trying to make happen. I'm hoping it'll happen next week, but I've been called, individuals have called me, and all I can do is tell them the truth.
Yeah.
This is important. I think we've addressed the situation. We talk about a threat if it's a substantiated threat. And I know some people aren't happy, but the fact of the matter is sometimes individuals say things that they shouldn't say. But when we investigate in a timely manner, we determine that there was no intent there. I mean, that's what we do. We tell the truth, and I understand how it sends shockwaves in the community. But there's so much positive that goes on, so much positive in our middle school, and I just want to in all our schools. And so I'm not trying to minimize this, but I feel it's important just to put more words on it. All I can say is this is where we're at with this. And then our intent is down the road after that was to plan and have a parent forum like Brooke, Ms. Maycumber is putting assemblies together around vaping and it's an issue we're going to invite other individuals to that, like from the middle school. So we recognize these things. These are not just Coventry issues, they're national issues. I was informed by Ms. Andrews as we came in tonight that I guess all over the country there's been bomb threats, including other systems in Rhode Island. Fortunate we weren't, but this is the world we're in today. But we try to do the best we can every single day to ensure to ensure safety of our staff and students. So I don't want to go on a tangent or spiel, but when people call me, I give them the honest answer. And if they don't appreciate it or they don't agree with it, that's their opinion. I have no right to tell people how to feel, but there's not anything more important than student safety and our staff safety every single day. So we will have those assemblies take place. I'm hoping they take place next week. I know it's a tough time, but there's a reason behind why they were canceled. And so we're trying to reschedule those as soon as possible.
Okay.
And the second part of my report, and Mr. Martin's here, is I asked Jason again to update the vehicles. It was probably a year and a half ago that we presented this list of the vehicles, and we all know the story about those getting that junk off of the Oak Haven property, which are our
We
vehicles.
didn't get pictures last time, though. We got
So-
pictures this time.
Jason, do you mind coming up and,
We got all the pictures.
I don't know. And the
put
reason I
them on
want to
the
bring
big
it
screen.
forward is that obviously this will play into our budget.
Yeah.
But I thought Jason did a phenomenal job with.
Yeah, nice job.
This packet of,
Yep.
looking at the industry standard, looking at where we're at. But I also, going back to the collaboration between the school department and the municipal finance department and town manager, there's been conversations already taking place about how we, looking at how much are we spending in terms of maintenance of our current vehicles, and is there a way we could look at leasing vehicles like the town has leased
Yeah.
for less money? And we're looking at that. Obviously, nothing will be decided without bringing it forward, but I appreciate that collaboration. So I don't know if you have questions for Jason, or Jason, you want to highlight some of these?
There's no highlights.
There's no highlights. They're all
No,
pitiful.
No,
It's
I
all
mean, there's a
pretty
couple
pitiful.
highlights.
Yeah,
There's the last few trucks are.
Yeah. I was like, wow, there's something even.
But it was actually a very sad day the other day when we lost our 27-year-old Sander.
I bet.
It really was.
I bet it was sad.
Did you have a funeral?
We kind of did, but the reason that it was nice to have an older truck sanding is being a sander just beats the life out of a truck.
Yeah.
It eats the back of it.
Yeah.
And that was like a perfect truck to just spread sand. So to have it fail means that now we're going to start eating away at another truck. So
Yeah.
it actually was a pretty big hit to lose that 27-year-old beauty.
So when you
It's
say
available for
sand,
sale if anybody wants it.
Is that sand and salt? So that's why
There's
it
a mixture
corrodes.
because we
Yeah.
use the same mixture that the
town does.
So in the beginning of the winter, there's more sand. I mean, more salt, and then as the budget prohibits, it's more sand and less salt.
Yeah. My only question was a couple of comments about rear frame damaged and some dents and whatever. Just wondering how those kind of things happen, or is it just the wear and tear of the vehicle on the road?
For the
or-
most part, it's the wear and tear. I think the one you're probably referring to is the first one in the.
Yeah, the very first picture. Yeah.
That was an accident.
It
that
was an
we had
accident,
when we were
yeah.
plowing. A lot of times when we're plowing at 2, 3 in the morning.
So you just kind of go into like a snowbank or something or
Yeah.
whatever and just get a dent in it or whatever. I was wondering.
And
about that.
we had some new plow drivers.
Yeah.
As my older plow drivers are starting
Yeah.
to say, I'm not doing that anymore. So you take the bumps and the bruises.
Yeah, I was wondering. I kind of thought that, but I wasn't sure. Yeah, it's a miracle fleet.
It is.
Some of the mileages, I just can't even
I
believe
know.
it.
I'm
just-
shocked.
Yeah.
And that's very updated. Like, we just lost that white dump truck. We just updated this
Really?
report. So when
When I
people,
saw the 2005, this one looks absolute, actually, then I looked at the mileage, I went, oh.
Yeah, I know.
some of them trick you and make you think they're not as old as they are.
Yeah, exactly. And so these kind of trucks, like, what does this guy do?
These are classics. You could
Like, what do you use those for? Like,
That's the truck that moves
I don't know.
everything when we move special ed program to Western and.
oh, so that's what that
truck.
does.
The one
Yeah.
thing that's not in this report is the Aramark truck.
Oh, I was wondering about that. I was
We
wondering if
didn't-
one of those
we
was
don't
like,
have it. We don't have it yet.
what's
They-
this thing do?
That is my carpenter's truck. That is probably the best truck that we have.
Really?
That's aluminum. That baby doesn't rust.
Wow. Oh, it's what? It's made of aluminum?
That doesn't rust.
Oh, cool.
He's
Even
like,
though it's a 1993 Chevy, that's why
if
it
we
doesn't
could find
rust.
more of those, there'd be
It's
more
aluminum.
of those.
Well, all you have to do is buy one of those, what do you call it?
The FedEx sometimes sells them. UPS sells them.
Yeah. And this guy, I didn't even know he owned anything like that.
That's our bucket truck.
Yeah. That's old too.
Yeah, well, yeah. I didn't even know. So what's that, to get up to trees and, oh, Jesus.
And change lights, pole lights in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
parking
yeah,
lot.
yeah. Oh,
But when we updated to LEDs, we haven't had to do a lot of that work anymore.
Oh, okay.
That's the nice part.
So yeah, I really appreciated the pictures because I've been here a long time, but I first of all never gone to the yard to see the trucks, so I have no idea. I know you have plows, but outside of that, so this was really interesting to see the variety and the deplorable conditions. Well, anyway, I'm sorry I cut you off, Dave.
No,
You
that's
wanna
okay.
Say something?
How many janitors are you down?
From when?
Let's say 5 years.
Probably, in the last 5 years, probably 4.5.
4.5. How many do you need?
To do what?
Okay.
4.5.
4.5. Okay.
I'm not sure that's part
I
of
know,
the vehicle.
beggars can't be choosers. I'll take
Yes.
2.
You take 2.
Just asking.
Any
And what-
questions about our vehicles?
I had a quick question because I had heard the town side was trying to put in some kind of washing system to help mitigate some of the corrosion issues.
Yeah, I
with
don't
their
know how
fleet.
I don't know how if they have finished that installation yet, but they did. Kevin and I did speak about that, and
Yeah,
when-
they were supposed. I believe they were supposed to offer the use of it to our
Yeah.
fleet as well.
yeah, because that would be a huge benefit to be able to wash the undercarriage after
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
Especially if we get anything new.
Yeah.
We don't want
Even my old one.
Yeah.
Yeah, even just to get all the corrosive material
Yeah.
off. It'll help prolong some
Yeah,
of the
and
rot.
I-
Doesn't help the mileage issue we
Right.
have.
No,
But
but it doesn't.
And really, my mechanic, obviously, this report speaks volumes of him. He works 30 hours a week, and he keeps this fleet up and running.
Yeah.
And he does it at a pretty good cost. He doesn't outsource anything. He does the only thing he can't do is an inspection. He has to take that out.
Take that out. Can't
And
fudge
now,
that.
since we've moved, I had purchased a wheel balancer, and so we can mount our own tires and everything now. So he's like a little gift from God.
So Jason, how many trucks do you need?
To do what?
He probably needs to replace all of them,
I
Dave.
need to replace this whole fleet, except
whole
for
fleet?
except for my
Aluminum
The one
truck.
except for my bread truck. Yeah,
Yeah,
The bread truck.
that's what we call it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 2 pickups that are in.
Yeah, that are in not bad shape, yeah.
We would say I would feel very safe to say I need 4 plow trucks.
Okay.
To make sure that I never have to call Craig and say, by the way, we can't open because 2 trucks died and we can't clear the building. Because that's where we're getting. That's that last little snowstorm we had was me and the guys out at 3 a.m, trying to move plows from one truck to another because this one wouldn't start. And
So the prospects of leasing?
I don't know that.
Don't know that.
Yeah, so I know the town
I
is.
did contact All American, who did the Chromebook lease, and the town has a master purchase
Yeah.
agreement with them, so it wouldn't be a whole new lease, it would be almost like adding on to the existing lease.
Yeah.
So I do have the rates. Unfortunately, the rates went up from last year, so it's not as favorable as it was last year. I did share that information with John and Ed, and they immediately called me and said, call Kevin. Kevin went through Santander, see if you can get their rates. So I don't think that this is something that will be a surprise to the town by any respect, that this is something that's needed. So I do anticipate that we'll run some numbers and bring them forward. I think you actually heard support on the council
Yeah.
side when we brought that up.
That's right.
So
We did,
That's right.
I
yeah.
think it's a known issue, so we are actively exploring it.
Cool. All right,
That's good.
thank you very much.
2 janitors and 4 trucks.
And can I just mention one thing?
Yeah, sure.
Earlier in the evening, we accepted resignation from Janet Hawkins.
Yeah.
She's a longtime custodian at Tyoke.
Yeah.
She is an amazing custodian. She will be greatly missed. She did amazing things at Tyoke. So,
Thank
That
you,
was
Jason.
Take care, Jason.
Any comments from the citizens or lack of? More lack of. Did you have any more further comments, Mr. Levis? Okay. And I guess I have nothing to report, and then we can go to citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments from the gathered citizens? Great. Saying that it's 9:15. Is there a motion to schedule the next meeting?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the next meeting of the school committee be scheduled for Thursday, January 10th at 6 p.m. at Coventry Town Hall.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-0. Is there a motion to adjourn at, I think it looks like 9:15?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned at 9:15 p.m.
I second.
Okay.
All in